your question was regarding the role that meditation plays in our day-to-day. Well, now, naturally said, Rob, whenever you raise the subject of meditation, you don't have to go off. And we may never get back to anger. maybe months before we return to the subject of anger. So much can be said on that. But let me just try to summarize, because we had talked on phone a little bit about this, and I suggested that you remind me the next time. So you're simply doing your homework, right? Well, the first thing you have to understand that a meditation is totally ineffective if one does it outside the context of the total silence. Let me repeat that. Meditation is totally and completely ineffective in our day-to-day life when practiced outside the context of the total silence. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. You have to remember that most of us think that meditation is an isolated event, that it has value in its isolation. Meditation has no value in isolation whatsoever. It will produce absolutely no change in you at all. Now, I know this sounds like a radical statement, but these are radical times. And in the West, there's a lot of misunderstanding about meditation. And something has to be said to clear this up. Because in the West, we think we can live any old kind of way, do 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of meditation, and somehow expect to come out spiritually evolved. This is not going to happen. This has never happened. It never will happen. And it's one of the unique diseases, mental diseases, that we suffer from here in the West. It reflects our whole attitude, not only toward meditation, but toward all spirituality. It's the same mindset that governs the Christian who thinks that by showing up Sunday for 45 minutes and throwing a few dollars in the plate and singing some gospels and reading a few scriptures, that somehow they're going to change their lives spiritually. It is meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. And so this same kind of Christian madness is transferred over into these esoteric practices. So now we outgrow our so-called elemental Christianity. And now we're ready for this exotic Eastern, deep Asian, African thing called meditation. And then we learn some techniques. And so we now practice those techniques. And we get up in the mornings and we sit for an hour or 2 hours, more likely for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but I'm being kind. Right? And then when we see no results, we feel no results. We don't feel any dramatic shifts in our day-to-day living. We don't see any impact that our meditation is having on our anger, our lust, our greed, our passion, and our egotism. We find that these are still running rampant, still like wild animals, hard to stay in control of, right? One has to wonder if this meditation happening to you. And my answer is no, it is not happening. And it's not having any effect because you are not practicing meditation within the context of the total silence. So we have to revisit briefly, because this is a very complex thing to condense to an answer in the next 10 minutes. We have to revisit the components of the total silence, of which meditation is one aspect. And meditation has to be preceded or accompanied by a whole series of things. If you recall several workshops ago on meditation, we talked about some of the classical systems of yoga, particularly Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras. Do you all recall? Were you there? You were? All right. And so when we were reviewing the Yoga Sutras of Pensenji, which is one of the 6 schools of philosophy, or philosophical spiritual system that we find in ancient and modern India. We found that Patanjali talks about the Astanga Yoga. Astanga means limbs. I see 8 limbs of yoga, or the 8 stages of yoga, right? The practices that make up yoga. And remember, it is plural. It's not singular. Practices. You remember we talked about the yamas? Who all remembers this stuff? We talked about the yamas, right? The niyamas, asana, pranayama. Ma'am, you should know all of these. You have been Dantas. Huh?
He's surprised.
Pratyabhara, right? Dharan, Dhyan, Samadhi. Right? I got them all. These are the 8 limbs of yoga. Right? Most of the yogas that we are practicing in modern times are based on this model of classical yoga. Bhakti yoga, Raj yoga, Kamala yoga. Remember we talked about those yogas? Bhakti yoga, right? Right? There's a lot of yoga. Today I talked a little bit about Sarvamara yoga. This yoga, Anger yoga, right? Tantra yoga. I mean, there's so many. We can go on and on and on. And I'm hoping that this information is not going wasted, and that I will find it, resurface it in your workshops at some point in time. So, Sandra, to answer your question now, meditation, if you notice, is here. It's the 7th limb, right? And what happens is that when we try to practice meditation outside the context of this whole system, that meditation is ineffective. In fact, any one of these things that we move outside of the system is ineffective. Now remember, the yama has to do with morality. Yama is the breakdown of the kind of morality that you must have in order to travel the spiritual path. If you are not practicing morality, you may go on meditating to the end of time. You will get absolutely no benefits whatsoever. I'm making very strong statements here because we mustn't misunderstand this. We need to be very, very clear about this. So, yama has to do with morality as it relates to your relationship with other people and your environment. The way you need to be in relationship with the world and with the people in the world. Now, very briefly, because I can't go into detail on all of this stuff, right? And yamas are made up of 5 individual component practices. You remember, one of them being ahimsa, harmlessness, right? Non-violence. You have to be non-violent. You have to not cause harm in deed and words. You understand? We are to strive to be in a relationship with environment and others in such a way that we are able to practice harmlessness. We should not be a source of harm. We should not be consciously living in such a way that it's resulting in people being hurt. Maharaj used to say the greatest sin is to hurt the feelings of another person. You just can't do it anymore. You see? That's failure to practice ahimsa in your relationship. And remember, we're not just talking about abstract relationships. We're talking about with your husband, with your wife, with your children, to be non-violent. Most of us, we're so violent within the context of our relationship. We say things to our husband and our wife and our children, just cut them to the core. We don't even think, we don't even pause, we don't even hesitate. And this is ugly. This is violent. This is not in the spirit of ahimsa. So ahimsa begins at home. We're so focused on this demonstrating love to our fellow mankind. Now this is safe because your fellow mankind is abstract. It really don't exist. It's in your mind somewhere. What exists is your husband, your wife, your children, your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, your siblings. You see, human beings, right? And when we do not practice ahimsa within the context of our personal relationships, we are not practicing morality at all. And so to the extent that we are violent in these relationships, to the extent that we are impervious and indifferent to the feelings of other people around us, then to that same extent we deprive ourselves of any benefit from any of the practices that make something else elaborate. And very often the mystics will start here, you will notice. We can actually split this thing from 1 and 2 is the foundation of spiritual practice. Meaning that you can't move nowhere on the spiritual path unless you got this foundation, this yama and yamaka. Another component of the yamaka, or what they call brahmacharya. Brahmacharya. Very often this word brahmacharya is translated as celibacy, chastity. It's not what brahmacharya means. Brahma is a Sanskrit word that means God, right? Charya, right? It's a teaching. Brahmacharya is literally teaching God-likeness. And how do you teach God-likeness? How do you teach someone God-likeness? Huh?
You model it.
Right. Oh, I love this here when you all like this here. Right. When you live it. So brahmacharya was the art of living like God. We are to strive at best to live like God, meaning to live out of that divine part of our being as much as we possibly can, to manifest that, to display it in our life and in our interaction with other human beings. To live like God is to teach God to others. And the chastity part simply came in as a demonstration of self-control. The celibacy is a demonstration of self-control. But I want you to understand the larger meaning of the word brahmacharya and rescue it from its narrow confinement to just chastity. So brahmacharya then is another component to make up the outward morality. Morality as it relates to our relationship with other people in this world. And I'm just flying through these things, right? So, Astia, none still. No still. No still. But the mystics mean by stilling something very profound. By stilling they mean whenever you take more than your needs, you are still. Whenever you have more than you actually can use in life, you are stolen. What do you say, yes. So it is the practice of simplicity. Take only as much as you need, not more. And if you have an abundance, if you have a surplus, then you have to share. If you have more than you need, you must share.
So how does that work in the corporate world? You make $100 grand.
You make $100 grand. How much you need to live? Whatever you need to live. If you need 50, have you got more than 50? then you need to share. And the more you share, the more you will make. Because you become a worthy leader for the enrichment of the mind. That's how it works.
So tithing and offering.
Tithing, all of that. All of that. You have more than you need. You have more knowledge, Shakya, than you need personally. And you need to share that. You see, you need to share. So esteem covers the whole spectrum of our being, not just our money. You see? It's not to steal, meaning that you are not getting and keeping more than you need. Because you're depriving someone else. Now you got more food than you possibly can eat. And 2/4 or half of the world is starving, and you are stealing food from children's mouth. Literally. Because you got hoarded in your basement. Thousands of cans of food waiting for the nuclear holocaust. Your garbage, you're throwing out more food in your garbage than some people eat in a month. You are stealing from the universe. And that is important. Yes, sir, Doctor.
Because contentment is right in there.
What?
Contentment.
Contentment.
Yeah. Does it fall in there?
It falls in, but it comes a little later. But you're on the right track. Right now, it's esteem. So there's none stealing. To get out of this stealing frame of mind where you're trying to have more than you actually need. Now remember, the mystic is not dictating to you what level you should be at. Please be clear. But once you have that which you need to live, and out of your abundance, you must share. Otherwise, you will simply steal from the mouths and the needs of others. I see God. The next one is sight. Do you remember these things? You can't be kidding me. You mean I spent 5 weeks for nothing? No, I'm only teasing. No, sometimes we have to visit them twice. Satya, truth. Truth. We have to learn how to incorporate truth by word, action, by our living in connection with other people in the world. And why is that so important? So important, we know already from Sarama Yoga that telling the truth is one of the sadhanas that you do to resolve conflicts. It's one of the ways to resolve conflict. But so by practicing truthfulness in our relationship with other people, we minimize conflict. Hence, we contribute to peace on earth. Are you with me on this? You see how that works? By functioning, living out of truth as it relates to the world and other people, not only are we able to minimize conflict, right, and thereby increase the peace on earth, we're also able to generate intimacy in love. Because we know that, for instance, in relationships, they are intimate only to the extent that truth is. Is that right? By living truthfully, we're able to not deceive other people, right? And become the legitimate basis for their beliefs. By living truthfully, we are freeing ourselves from our own ego mythology and our own dysfunctionality, you see, so that we can really be useful to them in the real sense of the word. So it only takes a little imagination to understand how you cannot have morality if there's not truth. Now remember, Sandra, we're just talking on the yamas. We're not even going deep. We're a long way from meditation. Would you be patient with me? All right. This is just our morality. You and I practicing this. Forget about meditation, not just forget about it. Stop torturing yourself. Stop deceiving yourself. You have purchased your master morality. Come and believe me. Not think about becoming a good man. Not philosophize. Become This is the beginnings of something. The last one, Bhagwan. This is what Sadhanaji you just mentioned. Greedlessness. Contentment. Be in a relationship with others in the world where it is not greed, where you're content. Because when there's greed, there's a tendency to exploit. You exploit. Very similar to Asteria, just a little different twist. Greed. To be in relationship in a greedy way. Hoarding. Just hoarding stuff. To not have contentment. To not have contentment. When you're not content, you become very competitive. Without contentment, you begin to compare yourself and contrast yourself with others. And others becomes now the enemy, the object to be defeated, to become greater than you. You're no longer content. You lose contentment. And when you lose contentment, you become disrupted in a community, in your relationships. So a part of Bhagwan is the fifth component in this yarn, which constitutes the foundation of morality as it relates to the world and other people. And unless you have this, any practice of meditation that you're doing is really not even meditation, technically, and certainly it's not even going to give you anything. And you will know that because people will go on trying to practice their meditations outside of the context of spirituality for millions of lives, and they will get absolutely nothing. Or maybe I shouldn't say nothing. What they will get is the realization that you got to practice it within the context. And perhaps that's not such a small thing. I can stop now. Well, I haven't done much damage. You want more?
Yeah, we can do this for a different song because we have too much for one person.
There's too much. Do niyamas? You want me to do niyamas?
How many is it?
5.
5 again?
That was just young. That was wrong. Too long?
Yeah.
Just
Then
give us
I'll
a synopsis.
give you a synopsis. You know, I can never summarize anything. I'll do the best I can, though. Niyamas, right? This is the practice of morality as it relates to yourself. Now, you have to understand this is deep. There is a kind of morality that should govern your relationship to the world and the people of the world. What Patanjali in the classical yoga is called this yama, right? But that is as it pertains to you and the world. But then there's another kind of morality that should be practiced in relationship to yourself. Right? This is the next challenge, the phase of the spiritual process. And the first one is satya. I'm sure I talked about this.
I don't remember. I probably have it in English.
Satya, purity, cleanliness, not just physically. Physical cleanliness is important because when the body is clean, when it is bathed, that in itself takes a lot of detoxifications out of you. Just having a clean body has a sattvic effect on the mind. It's calming on the mind. And so certainly, satya includes physical cleanliness, meaning that, you're clean physically, right? But more importantly, satya means purity of thought. When we're talking about the practicing of niyamas, morality, as it relates to ourselves, how we should be in relationship to ourselves, we should try to keep our minds clean of any negative thing. You should not be thinking how you're going to hurt so-and-so. Satya means Keeping these mind free of this negative anger. Keeping it free of lust. Keeping it free of greed, vanity. Those 5 perversions, all of the thoughts that generates the phenomena of these 5 perversions, we should clean our minds of this. This is what satsang means. Purity. You see? Purity. A pure mind and a pure heart. You should not harbor any of those thoughts. Because this will damage you. The next one is santosh. Santosh means content, literally. We talked about the body, and we don't agree with it. Here's talking about now the internal personal practice of contentment. It stands on its own as a practice. Content, to be content, practice content. To surrender to himself. That in itself is a good thing. Because we never accept life. We never surrender to life. We don't appreciate life. Santosh means develop the capacity to appreciate. Stop bitching and moaning. Because that's all we do is complain. Moan, complain. We're not grateful. We're not appreciative. We have this incredible phenomenon called life. Now you've done nothing to deserve it. Nothing. It is just grace, pure grace. And all you do is complain and complain and moan and complain. Santosh is stop it. Stop it is complaint. Replace it with gratitude, appreciation, with content. Surrender. Accept it. Be grateful for life. You need not have it. You see, at all. This is the way you are to be with yourself. Tapas. Tapasis. Discipline. It means to discipline the senses. To discipline the senses. To not follow all of your sensual impulses, because you have all kinds of sensual impulses running through you. You see? Tapas is to burn up those impulses in the fire of self-discipline. But the old mystics call asceticism. Discipline. Sometimes, in the ancient times, the mystic would go out and he would stand his body out in snow. Discipline. And he would stand it out in the hot sun. Discipline. So much so that it becomes indifferent to hot or cold. To stand in charge, the system. Right? To break the body of this habit of following automatically along the lines of the impulsivity. Sensuality. Fasting. And remember, fasting not just at a physical level, you see, but total fasting. You see. Total fasting. Across the whole spectrum. You found it now, right? See, I wasn't hallucinating after all. That's right. See that? Obvious, the record keeper, she has it all. Great. So, discipline. One of the practice here, it's interesting, we don't think about it, it's called mona. Silence. Those ancient people who mastered the practice of this aspect of tapasa called mana were called munis. Sometimes you see the word muni in each, you see this word muni. Muni means of one who practices silence. Not just silence of the mouth. Not just non-speech, but silence of the mind too. No thinking. Truma. Now why practice that? Because that fills you back up with a lot of energy. So much energy is just dissipated and useless, useless. And even more is dissipated in needless, useless thinking. Actually, you dissipate more energy in useless thinking than you do in useless talk. And we all know after a good round of gossip how exhausting that can be, right? You see? But just contrast that to when you just sit and thinking all the time. Mind trying to solve problems. You just exhausted. Your mind is just going on. The mind is nothing but a problem-solving mechanism. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. There is no end to it. And at the end of the day, you just broke down. You have exhausted all of your energy in thinking. So true mana is practice. Not only at the level of the tone, practice of silence, but even silence in this mind. Fourth for the Swagdhyaya. Study. Because in mysticism, you must study. That is the whole purpose for the existence of the great literature, this great spiritual literature. We are to study. And we're to study with the object of understanding ourselves. It's about self-observation. It's about the study of the traditions, the spiritual traditions. Most of us don't make much part because we don't even understand our own spiritual tradition. And that doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, usually you don't understand Christianity. If you're a Muslim, you really don't understand. Most of us don't understand Islam. If you're a Buddhist, you don't understand the Buddhist tradition. You see. If you are a Jain, you don't understand the Jain tradition. It doesn't matter. What we find is just lack of understanding of your own tradition. You've not studied it. You see, you're not going deep into it. And one has to go very deep into it. It is the only way to transcend fanaticism and blind belief. It's the only way to arrive at your own conviction. And remember, without your own conviction, you will not have the strength to survive the journey on the path. The conviction has to be your own, and you have to make it your own through deep, systematic, daily study. And there can be no compromise.
So each one of us should have a tradition. We should be Christian or Muslim or something.
Whatever your tradition is, you see, but you will have to be studying some spiritual teachings. So Yaya means that you have incorporated the practice of deep, reflective thinking along topics related to spirituality. You are hearing the teachings and you are trying to understand the teachings. And that has to be a component. And all of this, remember, Sandra, is foundational. We're still a mighty long way from Dhyan meditation. Because we have to ask things, because we want to understand why don't we derive any benefit from our meditation? Because you have none of the foundation in place. You are not in morality outside, nor are you in a state of morality as it relates to your own self. You are not in a state of heart.
The Bhagwan, so self-awareness is right in there too, right?
Self-awareness? Self-awareness is a long way away. This is just getting morality in place. The last is what the Hindu mystics call Vara Panidana. You don't have to worry about all these Sanskrit terms. All you need to understand is the concept. It means devotion to God. You have to build up in yourself a devotion toward God, because God is not going to force itself on any of us. That's not going to happen. God is not going to come down and forcefully turn you into a devotee. That's not going to happen. We have to create from our side these feelings of worship and devotion for God, for that higher dimension of our being. We have to create in ourselves a longing to attain that level of being available to us. All of us have the opportunity to live at the out of the divine part of our being that we call God. All of us. And something in you has got to begin to aspire to live at the level of your divinity. Something in you has to get sick and tired to a point of nausea of living in the lower dimensions of life. There has to be a thirst. Jesus said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst. Is that right? Remember? We talked about that. For theirs is the kingdom of God. Not even no time. This is right about it. This is bringing that devotion, bringing that along. Because do you really want Godization? You have to understand this thing here. You see, you can't, nobody cares about what you say with your mouth. Oh, Bhagwan, I love God, I really want to be spiritual. Just talk, just talk. This is just coming out of your mouth. Nowhere in your life do you see it any longer. There is nothing in you pining. You're not laying awake at night. Mirabai fastened herself to her bracelets could fit around her waist. Mirabai was serious. She tore her hair out of her head on her wedding day. Hafez threatened to put his eyes out of God, preventing him from having this vision. You sleep soundly at night. And you are not concerned. There is nothing in you that is churning and yearning and missing this divine part of your being. You are not having the experience of the chocolate bird that has the experience of this love affair of the moon. You're feeling nothing that the moth feels when it's away from the flame. There's nothing written in you like a fish out of water. You are not missing. You're just talking. Nothing wrong. But that until your devotion goes way beyond just a level of talking, lip service, I want to be spiritual. It would be nice if I could be sweet. It has to become a yearning. Jesus said, hunger, thirst. The mystic said, worry about getting the thirst. Don't be worried about water. Worry about hunger. Don't worry about food, because when hunger, their food comes. It's the law of the universe. Almost done. Where there is thirst, water will come. Almost done. That's the law. Work on your hunger. Work on your thirst. It's water. Work on that. You're not thirsty. You're not hungry. That's why God is not descended in you. But I used to always say that if and when one's thirst for God realization really becomes genuine, it happens in the twinkling of an eye. No sabotage. This thirst brought to a fervor is itself real. Who could resist when a child cries? You've been mothers. When that baby is crying, you home. The baby need not do anything just to cry, and the mother's there. You understand? I was reminded of the power of the cry of the helpless child, watching my own wife. And I was surprised this woman could wake up like that, because yeah, she wake up like that for me, that's right. There was many nights I tapped on her shoulder and she's just snoring and she's sleepy, and when this baby came, just the slightest noise, and she's up on her feet. I mean, I heard that she hit the floor, fully ready. You see, right? Because of that child, that cry. And mothers never lose that, even when their children become adults, and that cry is there. You see that mother. And you know you shouldn't be giving this boy no more money, but hey, it's my boy. I got to give him this money. You understand? And you know that it shuts down, so it's something powerful. The Lord is like that. The Lord is like that when he hears our cry. The Lord has to come. There is no choice. He has no free will either. When the human being cries, God must come. He has no free will. He must, it must, she must respond to the cry of the helpless soul. This is Islam. You got to have that. We're still a long way away. Now, Niyamas is in place. Now we're ready for some spiritual talk. The Namas and Niyamas are there. Now we can go. Now we can talk seriously. We can have a real conversation now. You see, we can have a Upanishad. I can tell you something about the Vedas. Now you can hear some teaching about the Yoga Sutras. Now you can hear something about the esoteric aspect of Christianity. In the old days, until you had your Yama and your Niyama down, the mystic taught you nothing. They were not so unwise. It's like for us. Here today, we got all this stuff and we just going at it. In a different time, you would have never had laid your eyes on Vedas. You would have never have seen the sutras. You would have never read the Puranas. You see, in ancient Egypt, you would have never have found out anything about the mystical system until you had this. Certain things never change. So the next phase, I'm spending a little time on this because we may not have a chance to ever do this again. Asana, posture. Now we get ready, okay? The preparation part is coming. Asana, posture. You must take a posture. You must take a position, taking a seat. The body must be put into a posture. Because the first ideal is that you have to make this body still. If you're going to make the consciousness and the mind inside, you have to first make this body still. You have to take a posture. In fact, a whole yoga called Hatha Yoga begin to develop just along this one practice along Hatha Yoga in the 84 positions. All are designed to find a position in the sun. You got to take a position. Seat. In the ancient time, the old yogis and mystics used to meditate on deer skins or tiger skins. And they used to call these deer skins or tiger skins the suns. The seats, because they're in the forest. They were covered with forest flowers. But later on, the word of sana simply means to put the body in position. You see? And so the contemporary meaning for sana now, the body posture, put it in the posture. Now I'm not going to go into all of that. But certainly you must learn how to master posture. You can't meditate, you can't even sit in a posture. Do you understand me? You can't sit. Oh, but why my leg is hurting? Well, how long you sit? 10 minutes? Well, what can I do? Master it. You got to get this. You got to get posture. You can't even sit. 5 minutes and you're so uncomfortable. 5 minutes. You're ready to abandon it. 5 minutes. And just a little pain. And don't forget, the pain that you're going to experience when death pulls you from the body will be 10 million times greater than this pain that you experience in mastering these postures. Your choice. Have some pain now and learn how to master, or you're going to get snatched out of the body. But pain is going to go through. But I used to always say that what you want, in one letter to me, he says, what you want is on the other side of this pain that you're encountering in this asana. You were saying that what you want is not back here. What you want is down here. It's on the other side of the pain. I'm trying to avoid the pain. Bhagwan, give me a position that's not going to hurt. I don't have one. It hurt. My legs hurt and I can't get up. Well, what can I do? What can I do? Even when you're sitting there, you can't meditate because your attention is too focused on the pain. You can't even concentrate. Pain is your monitor. My legs is hurting, my legs. I didn't tell you to repeat your legs is hurting. That's not, I didn't use that monitor. You can't listen to the sugar. You listening to your mind say, oh God, oh God, oh. That's not listening to sugar, right? Asana has to be. Next stage, pranayama, breathing. And when I say breathing, I simply mean to get into an ultimate state of relaxation. That's the whole function of pranayama yoga, to fully engage the sympathetic nervous system. Feel your body to a maximum level of relaxation. Because you have to be relaxed. You have to be very, very relaxed. All tension has to be gone. And the best way to do that is through pranayama. It gets rid of all the tension. You need not even consciously try to do pranayama. When the body's in the right posture, it will automatically start breathing along the lines of pranayama. Automatic. Hold the body still for X amount of time, and automatically the breath will move to the body. Pranayama becomes automatic. The next one, pratyabhara, the inhibition of senses. The inhibition of the senses, closing down the sensual outlets through which our attention is flowing. The closing of the eyes, ears, etc. You see, all of the 9 apertures in the body has to be shut down. And we have to restrain sensual impulses. Now you're sitting, it's time to meditate, but you can't get out of that bed. You cannot restrain your impulse, your sensual impulse to remain lying in bed. You can't get past that. Hence, you can't get up. You can't get up. The bed is too comfortable. It feels too good. Bhagwan, I can't. I understand. You have to do that. You need to practice pratyabhara. You need to be able to restrain these sensual impulses to live in your relaxation. You got to rise above that. Until you can rise above that, you can't even get up. You have to be overcome. You like watching TV till 1:30 at night. What can I do? You got to be able to rise above this addiction to entertainment. What can I do? Your alcohol, your drugs, you gotta go beyond that. What can I do? This is the system. Dharana. That's concentration. You gotta be able to concentrate. You gotta develop the capacity to concentrate. You gotta be able to make the mind focus in on an object. We talked already about how certain things focus the mind automatically. Right? Sex focuses it, anger focuses it, so I don't care what object, but you must learn how to focus the attention of the mind. Dharana. Now, Sandra, we get to meditation. Meditation is now that once you have focused the mind on an object, meditation is the process of merging into that object. First, if I wish to merge into this can, I first have to be able to concentrate on this can. And once everything else in my field of awareness goes out and there's nothing but this can left, now I'm ready to practice meditation, which is the plunge all the way in. To close the gap between me and it. To close the gap between me and God. To merge. Some ideas to experience that merging. The consequence of which means bliss. I'm giving you a very, very, very quick synopsis of the whole process. So whenever we look in our life and you want to look and see why you're not feeling any progress in your meditation, why you're not seeing the benefits of the meditation, you need only to look back in your life and see where I have failed in the practice of the whole system. And without exception, we will all find that we have failed something. That's right.
You work on a yama and a nayama at the same time, or once with the morality of silence or
we work on them all.
at the same time?
Yes, it's like a process. It's like a process. Of course, we begin, but we keep right on going. It's like in the morning I put on my hat, then my shirt, then my underwear, some mornings, socks, and then you fully dressed, you're ready to go out. It's like getting dressed. It's like that. But we have to start with the little things.
So I can go from yama, nayama,
Yama down to the yama.
in one day?
Oh,
Can I do all, I mean, can I work on it? I thought it was a process where you have to master it first, and then you go into meditation, but you just work down the line in your day, then at the end of the day?
Yes, insist, because that was Sandra's question. That if we have not been fully engaged in this process throughout the day, then when it comes time to meditate, okay, nothing is going to happen because there's been no foundation. If we allow the mind to run all day, you can't concentrate in that. It's just not. You know, if you see my point? And that's why we will feel disconnected. The meditation will feel disconnected from our life. Now, do that make us worthwhile, useless human beings? I hope not. I hope you didn't get that impression. It simply tells us what's really at stake, what really has to be. Now, two last questions on anger. Back to anger here before we all done, because we only have one more tune-up session on anger. And I think what we'll do next time is that I'll kind of get you all involved and we'll kind of do like a collective workshop. And I want you to break down into teams if any of you feel that you still are not quite ready to go out and facilitate your own workshop. Now I have about, as I said, about 6 sites set up. One, in fact, will be here at Oak Park, here in the other room over there. We have PCR and blackboards over there on that wall. One in Austin, 2 in Austin, Austin Town Hall, Austin High School. And Florida has been kind enough to arrange at her library for the new Marshall. And who am I forgetting? Deneen School is another one. And I have a couple more that I'm working on. And so there'll be plenty of outlets for you. But again, I don't want you to feel under any compulsion to facilitate, you know. You can just work together or not do it. It doesn't, you know, I mean, I'm not going to love you less if you don't facilitate a workshop. That's not the be all and end all. But those of you certainly who are ready to be prepared, the second week in September, we'll start rolling out. And for us, then the next workshop, we'll try to nail this thing down. Read the literature, you got plenty of videos to watch, and you always have the opportunity to do an anger sadhana. And that's how you learn this Sarama Yoga. It's by doing this sadhana, with the exercise. Now, if I have knocked all the air out of your cells with that Patanjali system, then we'll have a few minutes more for questions. I'm taking up all the clock time today. I know we won't have it again. Any questions? Yes or no?
So anger and lust and greed and attachment, nothing but desires.
Well, they arise, all of them are rooted in desire. Desire can branch off into anger, lust, greed, attachment, and even vanity. It's really interesting to see that. All of these are rooted in desire. Hence in Buddhism, the Buddha says that Krishna, desire, is the root of all harm, meaning all action. And therefore, we have to destroy desire. In most mystical paths, we don't talk about reaching a point where you transcend desires, where you drop all desires. You see, where you don't desire anything.
But all of it's a part of your mythology. All of it is a part of your mythology.
All of the desires that we create, it's very often the fulfillment of our own people-centered needs, yes. And somehow related to our mythology or supports our mythology. But it's only by going beyond that that we can encounter ourselves. You mentioned before, as we were going through the Patanjali classical system, where does self-realization come? I said it comes in later. It comes in at the level of samadhi. Because at the level of samadhi, there is the transcendence of all desire, because there's no more thoughts in the mind. We've taken care of them, right? There's no more even me. The thing that you call me is gone, right? And all that is left is the self. Which means, of course, that we make a distinction between the self and that in you that you refer to as me. That in you which you refer to as I. That is always, that I is always the conscious experience of desire. This I is desire. And he said, notice that I am thirsty. Now you identify with the thirst. The desire for water, the ability to face from that. I I am that which is thirsty. I am that which is hot, therefore desire rest. So wherever you have this identification, it automatically generates the desire. That's why we say when you externalize attention, now you set up the whole process. Nirvana means the extinguishing of that whole process. And that is what produces the state of samadhi. Now it's interesting, do we stay in samadhi all the time? No. You go into samadhi, but when you come back out of samadhi, you bring back the experience of samadhi. And this experience of samadhi now change your whole experience of life. You don't experience life ever the same. You see, you have that awareness, and then you're able to participate in this leela, as we call it, this play, this drama, because life itself is a drama. We mentioned earlier the fact that this is just a number, this is a drama, this is a state, and you're able to enjoy it. It's a great drama. You see, and everybody play their part. You play your part, and it just becomes a festival. It becomes an experience of heaven.
So, Bhagwan, so once you experience samadhi, do you ever have to go back and get refueled, or?
And go refuel?
Yeah, or is it, or is it just?
Yes, that's the whole point. Is that meditation very often is our it's getting located in ourselves. And then wherever your karma is, you see, you may have to come back. As long as you have karma, you're going to be involved in this creation. There's no way around that. You see. Then after the karma is over with, then one enters into what they call the Mahasamadhi, the great samadhi. You see, where there's no more coming and going, no more being a part of this wheel of birth and death and all this other stuff. But even the enlightened person, you see, has to go through their karma, this life. And that means they have to come down and you have to get into the thicket of everything, but they never lose awareness of who they are. And that is what enables them to go through this without being buffeted by ups and downs. So that is the benefit. That is the benefit. Any other anger questions, huh? Any other questions at all? We're milking it, pushing it to the limits. So know your objects of anger. Know the homeworks that goes with each object. That's something that you should know which exercises to assign for helping the individual manage their anger at others, which exercises for others' anger at you. Make up a few exercises, be creative, right? Practice some investigating the nature of your own anger. Do those things and you'll be fine. You'll be just fine. So how many are ready to set to go? Let me see those hands. Everybody, okay, all right. Tony, you ready yet? Huh? Or you can team up with Avi if you don't feel quite ready to go on your own. So, that's good. How many people will find the books useful? Nine. Find it very useful. All right, then, if there's nothing else, let's get ready to rumble. So we won't be here next Sunday. We'll be back on the 11th. Please make a note. I think, Pam, you weren't here when I mentioned that.
Right, I just found out. No, I wasn't.
So we'll meet again on the 11th, and that'll be your last tune-up workshop. And then from there, the Y will be closed for the next couple of weeks. So I guess after next Sunday, unless we meet somewhere else, and I leave that always up to you guys. Do you want to resume these Bible things we've been doing afterwards, or should we go into something else? Well, you all, of course, decide. For those of you who have had enough of the Bible, right? I don't want to punish you, but if we want to investigate another subject, the satsangs afterwards, as time go on, we will hopefully become much more spontaneous, much more informed. I like informed satsangs, where there's just a flow. Naturally. All right, I guess that's